Look around the room for a second. Is there a chair you sit in every single day? Not just any chair? The one that knows your body better than most people do? The one with the cushion that's shaped a little like you now? The one waiting for you right now? Patient, familiar, safe. Here's something most men never think about, and I want you to really sit with this for a moment. No pun intended. The most dangerous object in your house might not be the medicine cabinet. It might not be the liquor in the kitchen cabinet or the extra plate of food on the counter at dinner. For a lot of men over 50, the most dangerous object in the house is the chair they trust the most. I know how that sounds, a chair. The thing you've earned the right to sit in after a long career, after raising kids, after decades of getting up early and coming home tired. It doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like the opposite of a threat. It feels like safety. It feels like the reward. And that's exactly the problem. Nothing that feels this safe ever gets questioned. Nobody warns you about the chair the way they warn you about smoking or drinking or eating too much red meat. There's no label on it. No doctor ever looks you in the eye during a checkup and says, "Sir, I'm concerned about how much time you're spending in that recliner, but maybe they should." I'm not saying this to scare you. I want to be upfront about that, because a lot of health content today is built to frighten you into watching, and I don't work that way. I'm saying this because I've seen it happen again and again, in men who worked incredibly hard their whole lives, who provided for their families, who finally reached a point where they could slow down, and slowly, without noticing, let stillness take over more of their day than they ever intended. This isn't about blame. You didn't do anything wrong by wanting to rest. You didn't do anything wrong by sitting down after 50 years of hard labor or long shifts or stressful jobs. This is about something quieter than blame. It's about awareness, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your body during those long hours of stillness, you can start to change it in small, manageable ways. Before we go any further, if this kind of honest, no-nonsense talk about men's health is something you want more of, go ahead and hit subscribe right now. I'm not here to sell you supplements or scare you into buying something. I'm here to give you real information, the kind I'd give a patient sitting across from me in my office, the kind that actually helps you stay strong, stay sharp, and stay independent as the years go on. So, subscribe, and let's keep going, because the chair has more of a story to tell. Now let's talk about what an average day actually looks like for a lot of men in this stage of life, because I think you're going to recognize yourself in this maybe more than you'd like to admit. You wake up, and often the first thing you do, even before breakfast, is sit down. Maybe it's with a cup of coffee. Maybe it's with the newspaper, or more likely these days, with your phone or a tablet. Scrolling through the news, checking the weather, seeing what's happening in the world. That's 20-30 minutes right there, and you haven't even started your day yet. Then, depending on your life, you might get in the car and drive somewhere. Maybe you're still working, maybe part-time. Maybe you're driving a truck for a living, spending hours behind the wheel with the seat holding you in place for the better part of a shift. Or maybe you're retired, and the drive is just to run an errand, but even that involves sitting. If you're at a desk, you sit there for hours, maybe getting up occasionally for coffee or a bathroom break, but largely staying in that same position, staring at a screen. Lunch comes, and you sit down for that too, which makes sense. That's normal. That's how meals work. But then the afternoon rolls in, and for a lot of retired men, or men with more flexible schedules, this is where the chair really takes over. Maybe you turn on the television. Maybe you pull up YouTube like you're doing right now and start watching one video after another. Time moves strangely when you're sitting still and absorbed in something. 2 hours can disappear without you even noticing, and when you finally do get up, your body reminds you, with a stiffness in the hips or a dull ache in the lower back, that it's been a while since you moved. Dinner is sitting down again, of course, and in the evening, there's that recliner, the one that feels like the true reward for a long day, the place where you finally let your shoulders drop and your whole body sink into rest. Maybe you watch more television. Maybe you fall asleep right there before making your way to bed. None of this sounds dangerous when you say it out loud like that. It sounds like an ordinary day. It sounds like rest. It sounds, frankly, like a life you earned through decades of work and responsibility. And in many ways, it is. But when you add it all up, morning coffee, the drive or the desk, lunch, the afternoon in front of a screen, dinner, and the evening chair, you're often looking at somewhere between 10 and 12 hours of sitting in a single day, sometimes more. And that's exactly why it sneaks up on so many men. Nobody warns you that the danger isn't sitting down once in a while, or even sitting down for an hour to enjoy your favorite show. The danger is sitting for hours, day after day, without ever really interrupting the stillness. It's not one afternoon. It's not one long drive. It's the pattern, repeated for years, that quietly starts to reshape your body from the inside out. Now, let me be clear about something, because I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm about to say. Resting is not the problem. I want to repeat that because it matters. Your body needs rest. After decades of hard work, after raising a family, after years of getting up before sunrise and coming home exhausted, you have absolutely earned the right to sit down and enjoy a quiet afternoon. Nobody is going to take that away from you, and nobody should try. The problem isn't resting. The problem is uninterrupted sitting. There's a real difference between the two, and it's a difference that most health advice completely glosses over. Most videos either tell you to exercise more, which you've probably heard 1,000 times, or they tell you sitting is the new smoking, which sounds dramatic but doesn't actually explain anything useful. I want to go a level deeper than that, because I think you deserve to actually understand what's happening, not just be handed a scary phrase. Your body was built to move, not to run marathons, not to lift heavy weights every single day, just to move regularly, in small ways, throughout the day. That kind of regular movement is what keeps your blood flowing the way it should. It's what keeps your muscles doing the job they were designed to do. It's what helps your body manage blood sugar the way it's supposed to, quietly, in the background, without you ever having to think about it. When you sit for too long without a break, your body doesn't just pause like a video on a screen. It actively starts to downshift. Systems that are used to being engaged start to quiet down. And here's the part that surprises a lot of men. This downshifting doesn't feel dramatic while it's happening. It feels like nothing at all. That's what makes it dangerous. There's no alarm bell. There's no sharp pain that tells you something's wrong. It just happens, quietly, session after session, day after day. So let me walk you through what's actually going on inside your body. In plain terms, the way I'd explain it to a patient sitting across from me in an exam room, not with a chart full of medical jargon, but in language that actually makes sense. When you sit for a long stretch, the big muscles in your legs, the ones in your thighs and your calves, go quiet. They stop doing a job most men don't even realize they have, which is helping pump blood back up toward your heart. Your leg muscles act almost like a secondary pump for your circulatory system. When you're walking, standing, moving around, those muscles are contracting and relaxing, pushing blood upward against gravity. When you sit still for hours, that pump essentially shuts off, so the blood flow in your legs slows down. For some men, that shows up as a mild swelling around the ankles by the end of the day, especially if you've been sitting for long stretches without moving. For others, it shows up as a heaviness in the legs, a tiredness that wasn't there years ago, a feeling like your legs are working harder just to carry you across the room after you finally do stand up. At the same time, your body's ability to manage blood sugar takes a real hit. This is something a lot of men don't know, and I think it's one of the most important pieces of this whole conversation. Muscles that are active pull blood sugar out of your bloodstream and use it for energy. It's one of the main ways your body naturally regulates blood sugar levels. But muscles that aren't moving don't do this nearly as effectively. So sitting for long periods, especially right after a meal, can make it noticeably harder for your body to keep blood sugar balanced. This is one of the reasons that long, uninterrupted sitting stretches are associated with a higher risk of blood sugar problems over time, even in men who are otherwise eating reasonably well. Then there's the stiffness, which is probably the thing you notice most directly, because it's the one that actually hurts a little. Your hips tighten up because they've been folded into the same bent position for hours at a time. The muscles and connective tissue around your hip joints essentially get used to that shortened position. Your lower back stiffens too because it hasn't had to do the work of supporting you standing upright or walking. And a lot of men don't even notice this happening until they try to stand up after a long stretch in the chair and feel that first stab of tightness, that little grunt that escapes before they even realize they made it, or that few seconds where you have to stand still and let your back and hips adjust before you can walk normally again. Energy drops too, and this one surprises people the most because it seems completely backwards. You'd think that sitting all day would conserve your energy. Save it up for later. But the body doesn't actually work that way. Movement is what generates energy. It's what wakes up circulation, gets oxygen moving efficiently to your brain and your muscles, and keeps your whole system feeling alert and responsive. So a man who sits for hours at a stretch often ends up feeling more tired, not less, foggier, a little slower to think, a little harder to focus on a conversation or a task or even a television show. You might find yourself needing a nap in the middle of the day, not because you did anything physically demanding, but because you did almost nothing at all, and your body responded to that lack of stimulation with fatigue. And then there's your heart, which is really the organ tying all of this together. Your heart has to work a little harder when the rest of your body isn't helping out. When your leg muscles are active throughout the day, they act like a second pump, sharing some of the workload of moving blood through your body. When those muscles go quiet for hours at a time, your heart takes on more of that load by itself, hour after hour, day after day. Over time, that added strain is part of what contributes to some of the cardiovascular concerns that become more common as men get older. None of this happens because you sat down once, or because you enjoyed an afternoon watching a movie. It happens slowly, quietly, one long sitting stretch at a time, repeated for months and years, until one day you notice you're more tired than you used to be, a little stiffer than you used to be, a little less steady on your feet than you used to be, and you're not entirely sure why. That's what makes this so easy to miss. There's no single moment where you can point and say, that's when it happened. It's death by 1,000 small stillnesses, if you'll forgive me for putting it that bluntly. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Maybe you're saying it out loud right now at the screen. I worked hard my whole life. I raised a family. I put in the hours. I paid my dues. I did my time. Am I not allowed to sit down and finally enjoy some peace? That's a completely fair question, and I'm not going to brush past it or pretend it doesn't matter. You deserve a real, honest answer, not a lecture, and definitely not a guilt trip. Yes, you are allowed to rest. I mean that sincerely. Rest is not the enemy here, and I want to be very clear about that, because I don't want this video to sound like it's telling you that relaxing is somehow shameful or wrong. Nobody is telling you that you have to give up your morning coffee in the chair, or your favorite show at night, or the simple pleasure of sitting on the porch and watching the world go by. That's not what any of this is about. And if that's what you took away from the last few minutes, I want to correct that right now. What I am telling you is that stillness which lasts for hours without a single break, without a single interruption, that's the actual enemy, not the chair itself. Not the rest you've earned through decades of showing up, working hard, and taking care of the people who depend on you. It's the hours that stack up, unbroken, day after day after day, that quietly start to work against the body you're trying to protect. There's also a trap here, a very common one, that catches a lot of men who are actually already trying to do the right thing. And I think this part is important because it might apply to you even if you think you're already handling this well. Maybe you go to the gym a few times a week. Maybe you take a walk most mornings before it gets too hot, or you do some light exercises at home because your doctor recommended it. That's genuinely great. I mean that. If you're doing that, keep doing it. Don't let anything I say here talk you out of it. But here's the part that almost nobody tells men in your position. 1 hour of exercise, even a really good, effective hour of exercise, doesn't fully undo 8 or 10 hours of sitting still for the rest of the day. Your body doesn't work on some kind of point system where a solid morning workout earns you credit that cancels out an entire day spent almost completely motionless. It doesn't work like a budget where you can spend all your movement in one place and let the rest of the day sit at zero. The blood sugar regulation I mentioned earlier, the circulation in your legs, the mobility in your hips and back. These systems respond to what you do throughout the entire day, not just to the 45 minutes you spent at the gym at 7 in the morning. I'm not saying this to discourage you from exercising, and I want to repeat that because it's important. Please, if you're already active, keep being active. Structured exercise has real, well-documented benefits, and nothing about this video is meant to talk you out of that. What I am saying is that exercise and daily movement are two different things, related but distinct, and you actually need both to get the full picture of protection for your body. One scheduled workout a day, no matter how good it is, isn't quite enough if the other 23 hours of your day are spent almost entirely still, sitting in the car, sitting at the desk, sitting in front of the television. So the goal here isn't to convince you to become someone who works out harder or longer or more often. The goal is to become someone who simply doesn't sit still for hours at a stretch without a break. That's a much smaller, much more manageable ask than go to the gym 5 days a week or run a mile every morning. And honestly, I think that's why it actually works for most men, because it doesn't require you to become a different person. It just requires you to interrupt what you're already doing every so often throughout the day that you're already living. Think of it this way. If exercise is like making a large deposit into your health once a day, daily movement is like making sure the account doesn't sit completely empty for the other 23 hours. Both matter. But most health advice only ever talks about the deposit, the workout, the gym session, and completely ignores everything else. I don't want to make that same mistake with you. So let's talk about what actually helps. And I want to be honest with you right from the start, because I know a lot of health content promises complicated routines, apps, trackers, meal plans, and honestly, most men I talk to don't want any of that. They want something simple enough that they'll actually keep doing it 6 months from now, not just for the first excited week. This isn't complicated. You don't need special equipment sitting in a corner collecting dust. You don't need a gym membership, though. If you already have one, that's a bonus, not a requirement. You don't need to change your whole life or rearrange your entire schedule. You just need to interrupt the stillness on a regular basis. Throughout the day, here's the simplest rule I can give you. And if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this one thing. Every 30 minutes, stand up. That's it. Stand up and move for about 2 minutes. Walk to the kitchen and get a glass of water. Walk to the mailbox and back. Walk around the living room a couple of times. If that's genuinely all you've got in you at that moment, your body doesn't care how far you go or how impressive it looks. It just cares that you moved, that you interrupted the stillness, that your legs did some work and your blood started circulating again. If 30 minutes feels hard to keep track of, set a timer on your phone. I know that sounds almost too simple to mention, but I've had patients tell me this one small trick changed everything for them, because they genuinely lost track of time while sitting and watching something, and the timer gave them a gentle nudge they wouldn't have otherwise had. After meals, especially, try to walk for 5 to 10 minutes. I want to emphasize this one, because out of everything I'm going to tell you today, this might be the single most useful habit you can build. Walking after a meal helps your body manage the blood sugar that just came in from that food right when it matters most. You don't need a treadmill for this. A short walk around the block works. A walk around the house works. Even walking up and down your own driveway a few times works. The point isn't the scenery. The point is that your muscles are active during the window when your body is processing that meal. If you spend a lot of time on the phone, whether it's catching up with family, talking to old friends, or handling some kind of business, try standing up or pacing slowly while you talk instead of sitting through the entire call. A lot of men tell me they actually think more clearly when they're walking during a phone call, which is a nice bonus on top of the movement itself. Here's a small trick that sounds almost silly, but works surprisingly well. If the remote control is sitting right next to you on the arm of the chair, put it across the room instead. It sounds like a minor inconvenience, and it is, but that's exactly the point. Small friction like that is what actually gets you up on your feet more often throughout the day, without you having to rely purely on willpower or motivation, which, let's be honest, tends to run out by the afternoon. If you're physically able to, try 10 slow chair squats, stand up from your chair, then sit back down, slowly, with control, and repeat that 10 times. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this keeps the big muscles in your legs, the ones responsible for that circulation pump I mentioned earlier, actively doing the job they're supposed to do. It takes less than 2 minutes and you can do it right where you're sitting, during commercials or between videos if you're watching something online. March in place for a minute. Lift your knees, get your arms moving a little, get your heart rate up, just slightly. Take the stairs when it's safe for you to do so, rather than automatically reaching for the elevator. Park a little farther away from the store entrance than you normally would, so the walk to the door becomes part of your day instead of something to avoid. And stretch your calves, your hips, and your shoulders, especially after you've been sitting for a long stretch, because that stiffness I mentioned earlier responds really well to just a few minutes of gentle stretching. Now, I have to say this clearly because your safety matters far more to me than any tip I can hand you in a video. If you have a medical condition, if you experience dizziness, chest pain, severe shortness of breath, or problems with your balance, please talk to your doctor before changing your activity level in any significant way. These simple movements are meant to be gentle, realistic, and low-risk for most men, but you know your own body, and your healthcare provider knows your medical history in a way that I simply can't from behind a camera. Please check with them first, especially if any of this feels unfamiliar or if you've been mostly sedentary for a long time. If this is helping you see your day a little differently, do me a favor and hit like on this video right now. It genuinely helps this kind of straightforward, no-hype health content reach more men who need to hear it. And down in the comments, I'd love to know, what's your version of the chair? Is it a recliner in the living room? A truck seat you spend hours in for work? An office chair you've been sitting in for 20 years? Tell me below. I read every comment, and I think you'll be surprised how many other men relate to whatever you write. Now I want to talk about why this actually matters, beyond the blood sugar numbers and the circulation talk. This isn't about looking young. Nobody's asking you to chase some image from 30 years ago. This is about something far more important than appearance. It's about keeping your legs strong enough to get up out of a chair without a second thought. It's about keeping your balance steady enough that a small stumble doesn't turn into something serious. It's about keeping your independence, the kind that lets you carry your own groceries, climb your own stairs, get down on the floor to play with a grandchild, and get back up again without needing a hand. You don't need to become an athlete. Nobody's asking that of you. What your body needs is simpler than that. It needs you to keep using what you still have, so it doesn't quietly start shutting down from disuse. Strength you stop using is strength you slowly lose, but strength you keep using, even in small, ordinary ways, tends to stay with you. So here's what I want you to try, just for the next 24 hours. Every time you sit for 30 minutes, stand up and move for 2 minutes. After each meal, take a 5-minute walk, even if it's just around the house. And before you go to bed tonight, pay attention. Notice whether your legs feel different. Notice whether your energy feels different. Notice whether your mood feels a little lighter than usual. That's the whole challenge. No gym, no equipment, no drastic changes. Just 24 hours of interrupting the stillness. The chair is not your enemy. You've earned your rest, and nobody's taking that away from you. But staying in it too long, hour after hour, day after day, that's what quietly works against you. So let me ask you something. How many hours do you think you actually sit on an average day? Be honest with yourself and tell me in the comments. And while you're down there, let me know, where are you watching this from today? If you found this helpful, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'll keep bringing you real, practical health information made specifically for men who want to stay strong, stay sharp, and stay independent. Without panic, without hype, and without complicated routines you'll never actually follow. And if you want to keep going after this, there's a video right on your screen right now that's a perfect next step. Go ahead and tap on it, and I'll see you there.